Sandy! Danny? What are you doing here?
You're a fake and a phony, and I wish I'd never laid eyes on you.
Whoa!
It doesn't matter if you win or lose, it's what you do with your dancing shoes. As the finale of Grease erupts into the electrifying "You're the One That I Want" number. With John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John dancing through the carnival fairgrounds, it's impossible not to be swept away by the sheer infectious energy. This moment captures everything that made Grease a cultural phenomenon in 1978 and explains why, over 4 decades later, we're still hopelessly devoted to this musical time capsule. When Grease hit theaters in June 1978, America was experiencing a curious wave of 1950s nostalgia. The film arrived at the perfect cultural moment, as the country looked back fondly at a supposedly simpler time amidst the uncertainty of the late 70s. What began as a gritty, raunchy Broadway show in 1971 was transformed into a Technicolor cinematic spectacle that would become the highest-grossing movie musical of its time. The numbers tell an extraordinary story of success. Produced for a modest $6 million budget, Grease went on to generate an astounding $366 million worldwide, making it one of the most profitable film adaptations in history. But raw numbers only tell part of the story. Grease's real achievement was creating a version of American teenage life that, while specifically set in 1958, somehow feels both nostalgic and timeless. At its heart, Grease is a film about transformation, not just Sandy's famous makeover, but how American culture was transforming in the 1950s, how cinema was transforming in the 1970s, and ultimately, how we all transformed during those pivotal teenage years. It's this multi-layered exploration of change, all wrapped in catchy tunes and vibrant visuals, that gives Grease its staying power across generations who never experienced the actual 1950s it portrays. The film perfectly balances nostalgia with knowing winks to the audience. It both celebrates and satirizes 1950s Americana. This duality allows viewers of any era to connect with the material on multiple levels, whether they're drawn to the earnest romance, the rebellious energy, or the pure spectacle of its musical numbers. In our journey through this landmark film, we'll explore how Grease became more than just a hit movie. It became a cultural touchstone that continues to shape how we think about music, fashion, and the universal experience of adolescence. From a technical standpoint, Grease achieves something remarkable. It creates a heightened, stylized version of the 1950s that feels more real in our collective memory than the actual decade itself. This was no accident, but rather the result of meticulous craftsmanship across every department. Director Randall Kleiser, making his feature film debut, brought a fresh visual approach to the material. Working with veteran cinematographer Bill Butler, who had previously shot The Conversation and Jaws, Kleiser opted for anamorphic Panavision widescreen to capture both the intimate moments between characters and the elaborate musical set pieces. Watch how the camera glides through Rydell High's hallways during Greased Lightning, or the way it dances alongside the cast during the National Bandstand sequence. The film maintains a kinetic energy that perfectly complements its youthful subjects. The film's visual palette deserves special attention. Butler's lighting choices create a vibrant, slightly heightened reality, where even supposedly ordinary locations like the school bleachers or Frenchie's bedroom feel infused with cinematic magic. The color scheme evolves throughout the film, becoming increasingly saturated as the story progresses, culminating in the carnival finale's explosion of neon and primary colors that visually underscore the character's emotional liberation. One of the production's greatest challenges was adapting the grittier Broadway show for mainstream audiences. The stage version of Grease contained significantly more profanity, sexual content, and social commentary. Producer Alan Carr and director Kleiser made the crucial decision to soften these elements while maintaining the show's rebellious spirit. This balancing act, making a film that felt edgy enough for teens but acceptable to their parents, proved to be a masterstroke that broadened its appeal. The film's production design by Philip M. Jeffries deserves particular praise for creating locations that feel both authentic to the period and heightened enough for musical numbers to erupt naturally. From the meticulously dressed Frosty Palace diner to the industrial playground of the Thunder Road Race, each setting provides both historical context and theatrical possibilities. Perhaps the most fascinating behind-the-scenes insight is that most of the principal cast were significantly older than their teenage characters. Olivia Newton-John was 29, John Travolta was 23, and Stockard Channing was 33 when filming began. This casting choice, while common in Hollywood, adds an interesting layer to Grease. These weren't actual teenagers, but adults looking back at adolescence with both nostalgia and self-awareness. Mirroring the film's own relationship with the 1950s, the music integration represents another technical triumph. Rather than simply filming stage-like performances, Grease pioneered techniques for making pre-recorded songs feel organic to scenes. Notice how Summer Nights moves seamlessly between multiple locations while maintaining narrative momentum, or how Hopelessly Devoted to You, a song written specifically for the film, emerges naturally from Sandy's emotional state. These weren't just musical interludes, but essential storytelling elements, establishing a template that countless movie musicals would follow. The true magic of Grease lies in its perfect storm of casting. Performers who not only embodied their roles, but elevated them to iconic status. At the center of this ensemble are two performances that would define careers and create cinema history. John Travolta's Danny Zuko arrived at the perfect moment in the actor's trajectory. Fresh off his star-making turn in Saturday Night Fever, Travolta brought a unique combination of swagger, vulnerability, and undeniable charisma to the role. What makes his performance particularly notable is how he navigates Danny's internal conflict, a bad boy torn between his carefully cultivated tough guy image and his genuine feelings for Sandy. Watch the nuance in scenes where Danny attempts to impress Sandy at the athletic field, failing miserably at various sports. Travolta communicates volumes with just his eyes, showing us the wounded pride beneath the pompadour. Olivia Newton-John's casting as Sandy was initially considered a risk. The Australian pop star had limited acting experience and wasn't an obvious choice for the role of an American teenager. Yet her transformation from wholesome Sandra Dee to leather-clad vixen in the film's finale became one of cinema's most memorable character arcs. Newton-John brings a genuine sweetness to early scenes that makes her evolution feel earned rather than arbitrary. The moment when she emerges in her new look at the carnival, confidently asking, "Tell me about it, stud," remains a defining movie moment that still elicits cheers from audiences. Perhaps the most complex and compelling performance comes from Stockard Channing as Rizzo. In many ways, Rizzo is the film's emotional center, tough, vulnerable, sexually liberated, yet secretly terrified of the consequences. Channing's rendition of "There Are Worse Things I Could Do" provides the film with its most poignant moment, cutting through the cotton candy nostalgia to address real fears about reputation, pregnancy, and societal judgment. It's a remarkable scene that adds genuine emotional depth to what could have been a simple teen romp. The film's most memorable scenes work because they perfectly blend performance with technical execution. Summer Nights introduces us to both the T-Birds and Pink Ladies, while establishing the central romance through contrasting perspectives. The split-screen approach creates visual excitement while showcasing how differently Danny and Sandy interpret the same events. A clever visual metaphor for the miscommunication that drives the plot. Greased Lightning transforms an ordinary auto shop into a teenage boy's fantasy world, with Travolta's athletic dancing and infectious enthusiasm, making us believe that a junker car could become an object of desire. The choreography by Patricia Birch, who directed the sequel Grease 2, deserves special recognition for creating dance sequences that feel both period-appropriate and timeless. Behind the performances lie fascinating casting stories. Did you know that Carrie Fisher was seriously considered for the role of Sandy? Or that Henry Winkler, TV's Fonzie, was the first choice to play Danny before turning it down to avoid typecasting? Perhaps most surprising, Marie Osmond was offered the role of Sandy, but declined because she was uncomfortable with the character's transformation in the finale. These casting what-ifs remind us how precarious movie magic can be. The Grease we know and love could have had a vastly different chemistry with alternative performers. The ensemble nature of Grease is key to its success. From Jeff Conaway's lovelorn Kenickie to Didi Khan's beauty school dropout Frenchie, Each character feels fully realized despite limited screen time. Together, they created a tapestry of teenage archetypes that still resonates, because, while the specifics of adolescence change across generations, the emotional landscape remains startlingly consistent. When Grease premiered in June 1978, critics were surprisingly divided on what would become a cultural touchstone. The New York Times dismissed it as not really the sleek and confident musical it should have been, while others questioned its sanitized approach to 1950s teenage life. Yet audiences immediately embraced the film with unprecedented enthusiasm. The soundtrack album topped the Billboard charts, and the film became the highest-grossing movie musical of all time, a title it would hold for decades. What critics missed, and audiences instinctively understood, was that Grease wasn't attempting documentary realism about 1950s high school life. Instead, it was capturing the emotional truth of teenage experience through the heightened reality of musical fantasy. The disconnect between critical reception and audience response highlights a fascinating aspect of Grease's legacy. It wasn't created for cultural gatekeepers, but for ordinary people seeking joy, music, and emotional connection. Perhaps the most controversial element of Grease, both then and now, is its final transformation sequence. Sandy's makeover from wholesome good girl to leather-clad bad girl has been interpreted in vastly different ways across generations. In 1978, it was seen largely as a triumphant moment of self-expression. Later audiences questioned the message that Sandy needed to change herself to win Danny's affection, while more recent interpretations view it as Sandy choosing to explore a different facet of her identity on her own terms. The scene's ability to sustain multiple readings across changing social contexts speaks to the film's surprising depth beneath its bubblegum exterior. As home video technology evolved in the 1980s, Grease found new life as a staple of VHS collections and slumber parties. Later, sing-along theatrical screenings transformed viewings into participatory events, with audiences dressing as characters and reciting dialogue. Few films have managed this transition from passive entertainment to active cultural ritual. What began as a summer blockbuster evolved into a multi-generational touchstone, with parents introducing their children to the film in a cycle of cultural inheritance. The film contains fascinating details that reward repeated viewings. During the carnival finale, many of the background extras weren't actors, but actual carnival workers who happened to be on location, lending authentic period faces to the scene. Several moments that feel spontaneous were actually happy accidents preserved in the final cut, like when Sonny drops his pizza during the school dance scene. Actor Michael Tucci stayed in character, creating a moment of genuine teen awkwardness. The famous car race at Thunder Road contains a technical goof that became part of the film's charm. Watch closely, and you'll notice the hubcaps on the rival car disappear and reappear between shots. Similarly, during the dance contest sequence, John Travolta's cousin Vince Barbera appears as a background dancer, one of several family connections among the cast and crew. Over 4 decades after its release, Grease continues to exert an outsized influence on popular culture that few films of its era can match. Its DNA can be found in virtually every teen musical that followed, from the High School Musical franchise to TV shows like Glee. The film established a template for combining contemporary music sensibilities with period settings, creating a sound that feels both authentic to the depicted era while remaining accessible to modern audiences. When Disney Channel launched High School Musical in 2006, the influence was undeniable. From the jock-good girl romance to the division of high school into rigid social groups. Glee's entire premise of outcasts finding themselves through performance owes a substantial debt to Grease. Even more recent teen-focused musical films like 2007's Hairspray, itself set in the same era, and 2016's La La Land contain noticeable echoes of Grease's approach to musical storytelling and character dynamics. Perhaps more fascinating is how Grease anticipated the modern cinematic universe trend by creating a richly detailed world that extended beyond its main characters. The attention given to secondary characters like Frenchie, Kenickie, and Rizzo created opportunities for ongoing stories that unfortunately weren't fully explored in the disappointing 1982 sequel, Grease 2. In today's franchise-driven entertainment landscape, Grease would likely have generated multiple follow-ups exploring different characters and eras at Rydell High. Why does Grease matter today? In an era of increasingly fractured media consumption, it remains one of the few pieces of 20th century entertainment that maintains universal recognition across generations. The songs, characters, and iconography have permeated so deeply into our shared cultural consciousness that even those who've never seen the film recognize references to it. In a media landscape often defined by cynicism, Grease offers something increasingly rare: unironic joy and a celebration of youthful energy. The film's current cultural significance extends well beyond cinema. Phrases like, "Tell me about it," "Stud," and "Go Grease Lightning" have entered everyday vernacular. The black leather jacket and pompadour look popularized by the film remains instantly recognizable as a symbol of cool rebellion. Fashion designers regularly reference Sandy's transformation outfit in contemporary collections. In 2016, Fox aired Grease Live, a live television adaptation that introduced the story to a new generation, while 2019's Olivia Newton-John auction of her original Bad Sandy outfit made international headlines when it sold for $405,700. What makes this enduring relevance particularly remarkable is that Grease depicts a version of American teenage life that's now more than 60 years removed from contemporary high school experience. The specific concerns of 1950s teens, drive-in movies, sock hops, and hot rod racing, bear little resemblance to the digital lives of 21st century teenagers. Yet the emotional landscape of adolescence portrayed in the film, the search for identity, the need for belonging, the intensity of first love, the fear of the future, remains startlingly relevant. In its final analysis, Grease endures because it captures something universal about the teenage experience while wrapping it in irresistible music and visual style. It's both a time capsule of how mid-20th century America viewed its recent past and a timeless exploration of how teenagers navigate the transition to adulthood. The film's closing carnival sequence, with Danny and Sandy literally flying off into the future in a convertible ascending to the heavens, provides the perfect metaphor for the film itself, a fantasy of adolescence that somehow manages to transcend reality while capturing emotional truths. What's your favorite musical number from Grease? And how do you think the film would be different if it were made today? The beauty of this cultural landmark is that it continues to inspire conversation and connection across generations of viewers who remain hopelessly devoted to the magic of Rydell High.